So as we said, we'd like to ask if anybody has a question for Hama, or for Alimu, I have to say, so please.
So how do you create your work? Do you have an idea, you wake up in the middle of the night and write notes? Or do you go and face a blank piece of paper and say, I must write 20,000 words today? Or do you go out for a coffee and a brioche and with a notebook and you see something interesting and you jot it down and make a poem?
I think about it at night, and I wake up in the morning to write it down. Like this morning, I got a story in my head. I don't know from where, and so I typed it so that I don't forget it. But otherwise, I sit in front of a white piece of paper and write, which is not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy at all.
Thank you.
Please.
So thank you very much, Hama. That was amazing. It was my first time hearing this, and I hope to read more of your books. My question might be a bit more political. Those of your generation who were activists against the Haile Selassie regime towards its end, do you look back in hindsight and think, from what came after the Derg, that maybe a little bit of patience for the Haile Selassie regime might have brought better change, or do you still believe in your activism of that day?
Okay. Hindsight is very perfect vision. So we were in that situation, and we never actually imagined there will be the Derg coming, more ruthless and when the regime will come. We did not imagine. We did not imagine that it will take us very, very long. For Haile Selassie's regime, we knew it was going down, but the process of change was not what we envisaged. So maybe if we had been better organized and taken more time to prepare, it would have been beneficial. But this is what you say after what has passed, Otherwise, you don't regret fighting for what you believed in. We wanted land reform because there was no democracy, there was nothing, there was oppression at all levels in what was Ethiopia. So we wanted some change, and we wanted to join the process of the change and democratization and coming out of the feudal system into a more democratic system. But we didn't have the experience at all. There was no political party in Ethiopia. We don't have any experience of political struggle before us. So we were very young. I was 19 and 20 years old when I left the country. So we did what we could. But as you said, if we had taken more time, maybe it would have been better. But this thing, you cannot do it, Revolutions are many times premature. They explode, you can't tell what happens, I think I've tried to answer you.
You have clearly spent your life as a professional writer, professional poet. I don't know whether you managed to make a living out of your writing, or if you also had to have a day job, as it were. What would you say to young people who aspire to be professional poets and make their living that way? Has it got easier? Has it got harder?
Well, I didn't live as a professional writer or poet. Professional troublemaker, maybe. But I was more into politics than into the writing. To young writers, I would say it's very difficult to process. Especially the way the whole things are organized. To have your book published is very, very difficult. If you come from certain countries, certain continents, that's a fact. And if you are new, they go after the stars. I mean, those who sell are bankable, So nobody takes a chance now on young authors and young writers to encourage them and to do. So I never made money out of the books, ever. But that was not my professional task, so it didn't bother me.
You make money as a troublemaker.
I don't make money. I live as a troublemaker. I don't make money, but I live as if like that. My commitment is otherwise.
Well, first of all, I would like to express my deepest appreciation and gratitude to the immense contribution Hama Tuma made and the contributions he made towards equality in my beloved country. I found the last message you just mentioned about returning to Ethiopia. I've been looking forward to going back. The question is, first of all, why did we leave? Ethiopia is a beloved, blessed country endowed with lots and lots of beautiful natural resources, nice people, brave people, Christian and Muslims living side by side in peace, and yet we were not lucky to have peace and development in that beloved country. Ethiopia always stretched their hands to God. Ethiopia always wanted to have good friendship with the British Empire, starting from Emperor Theodorus and Queen Victoria, to France, to Germany, to Italy, to the whole world. So we suffered from two enemies. One is internal lack of democracy, and secondly, lack of international cooperation. It happened that international powers often collided with the repressive regimes. The Soviet Union at one stage with the military government. The British government now siding with the current regime, and Ethiopian people are in deep crisis. So what do you think, sir? What do you think should be done locally among Ethiopians? And also, what do you expect from our friends, good friends here, from international communities, to pave way for a peaceful return to our beloved country, and for that historical country, land of God, to continue to exist? Thank you.
Well, this is supposed to be a forum for literary discussion and about books and writing and poetry. I will like to advise you not to get me into politics. Because you'll be tired. So I leave the politics out of all this. So politics determines our existence, our life and everything. That's why we left the country, that's why we struggle, we exist, we live, we hope for and all that. But this is a very complicated and long-standing issue, which I'll prefer to pass.
But can I answer a bit for you?
Yeah.
Because I think that the act of writing, certainly the act of writing how Hama writes, is a revolutionary, is an act of protest, an act of telling the truth, an act of hope, just by setting pen down on paper and writing the sort of thing that Hama writes, making fun of people in authority, which is what satire is all about, whether it's Spitting Image or Hama Tuma's, the case of the criminal walk, or it is an act of rebellion. And that's why we called this evening, that's why the sort of tenuous connection between Hama and Keats. But actually that leads into my question for Hama, which is, here we are sitting in Keats' house, who, as a poet, influenced me a lot. I mean, obviously I can't write in the same way because we don't write in the same way. And in fact, when Bokatu Seyum asked me why, the translations I was doing of his work with Alimu, they didn't rhyme, And I said, well, in English poetry now, we don't really use a lot of rhyme. We use alliteration, we use other, but if we rhyme full rhyme all the time, it sounds very old-fashioned and it sounds a bit too easy. And he said, but Keats rhymed. And I had to say, well, yes, you're right. I'm not Keats. Anyway, my question was, sitting here in Keats' house, have you had writers in your life who've been like influences on you, inspirations to you, either Ethiopians or non-Ethiopians?
Yeah, many, actually many. Because as I said before, we're influenced to read wide and very eclectic. We didn't have a dogma, you shouldn't read this, you shouldn't read that, even though our Jesuit teachers in high school didn't want us to read hard-boiled detective stories, violence, sex, things of those. But we hid these books and we read them anyway. Otherwise, we read as the books we got.
But are there any particular authors who stay in your mind?
In the Ethiopian, I have all the authors. We used to cry over the books of Mokonnen Dalkacho. I think most of the youngsters, you may not know Bitwader Mokonnen Dalkacho these old times. Then Kabede Mikael's poetry and stories. And then Hadi Shalamayu came. But in poetry, we are more impressed by our senior elders, like Gemorau, like Tsegega Ormadin. Both of them are dead now. And these were militant poets. And others were expelled from the university because they read very radical poems.
Was Gemorau at the university with you?
He was my elder in the university. And he was also expelled from the university because they wrote these very, very critical poems, but which were very beautiful literature-wise. They were educated in the church-educated intellectuals, modern intellectuals, but with a background of church education. They spoke Amharic and they wrote Amharic very well. Not like me, I write and speak Addis Ababa Amharic, which is not classic Amharic, it's a city Amharic. They influenced me a lot, and then I read a lot of, I don't know whom to say. For English, they made us read all the classics. And then we read the Soviet books, of course. Chinese books, Liu Sun and all the other novelists. And then in Africa also. South African writers had a big influence on the university.
For example?
Well, Alex Laguma and I forgot the other names. Chino Achebe. Chino Achebe, not Seinka. Those who got the prizes, somehow we don't read them. I don't know why. But Kenyan authors also read a lot. And
there's a lovely quote of Ngugi wa Thiong'o which we used for our...
For poetry, I enjoyed also very much Langston Hughes.
Langston Hughes, yeah.
And then Mahmoud Darwish from Palestinians.
Darwish, yeah. Got a question from Jeffrey at the back there.
So this might be a difficult one, I don't know, we're going to find out. But being a satirist is great fun, and it gives a lot of fun to everybody when you take the, we say in English, take the mickey out of politicians and so on. We all have a good laugh. But what I want to ask you is this. Do you actually think that the people that you are satirizing are absolutely stupid? Or do you think they're doing the best they can in the job they're in? And would you do any better?
Good question.
Very well done. It's a difficult question. No, it's not a matter of stupidity. It's a matter of greed. It's a matter of being soulless. It's not that they don't know. In my African Studies book, I've written about many of the African leaders and their failings and satirized on that, written the articles. I've met many of them also, by the way. I know them personally. Some of the African presidents are really fools. I'm sorry to say this.
Do you think you would do any better, Hama?
Of course I would. I think so. You never know. My assumption is that. Okay.
Comment.
Okay. I want to bring you back into politics, but about not any specific politics. It's the concept of exile. I feel guilty of starting something, initiating something, involving people, doing something, and run away, saved my life, and I live luxuriously here, relatively luxuriously here. Many intellectuals have done that. So when I think of the concept of exile, I really feel very bad about it. What is your view on that?
Well, I can feel the loneliness, alienation, and all that. One thing is, you must, if you have an attitude to say you have a country, but all other countries are also your countries, then you get involved in that. Me, after coming into exile to Sudan, from Sudan I was expelled with my group, with a group of us. We were expelled to Algeria. That was Algeria of Boumediene time. Very racist, very police state, at the same time very revolutionary, in quotations. That was the time when the Black Panthers were there, all the revolutionary groups were there, I mean, Cal Capral, what have you, all of them were there. But it was very harsh, very demagogic police state actually. But then I went back to my country. I did not stay in exile. I came in exile at 1987. 88. You know?
So you went back to Ethiopia again before coming?
I went back to Ethiopia.
You see, this is my issue still is, if everybody who's claimed to be a revolutionary starts something and it didn't work, leave your country. You see how many intellectuals live in America, how many people live in Europe, and for good. Really, it's for good. Very few people have returned home, and those who went probably for various reasons. So this is what worries me. When is it that somebody says, no, I will stay here, die here, no matter what? And does that make sense? I don't know. I am guilty of that.
A lot of people died. A lot of people died. They stayed there. They died. They sacrificed themselves. We went into exile not for exile. We went into exile to come back and fight. See? So our way of going out, the reason why we went out, it was very different. We went into exile to organize, to get armed, and to go in, and that's what we did. So it's not people coming to exile. They have no alternative. Most do not have alternatives, So they come out, but part of them is always there. Sometimes even the suitcase is left unpacked, So it's too bad that it's become a perpetual thing. When you hope you are going back, thousands are coming out. This is the world we live in. So you always hope to go back. You should not forget your country. Where you are, also you should be very active for human rights, for democracy, wherever you are. And that keeps you active and alive.
Unless it's a second generation.